Thank you, Mathrubhumi, for investing in this very important product and this important initiative on World News Day. Fact-based journalism, honestly, to me, sounds like what it should be synonymous. Fact-based journalism, it should be synonymous terms, because journalism has to be fact-based, and if it's not, is it even journalism is the question. And it's unfortunate that we have to talk about this today as reminders, because the fact is that journalism has become so much more than being honest and sacred to facts. We're so much more opinionated now than we were before. We're so much more committed to a particular angle, and a particular ideology, a particular slant than we used to be at some point in the not so distant past. And I think that really, if we come down to looking at the root cause of where society is today, is I think a lot of it has to do with the polarization that media is kind of fed into. I think a lot of us take time to absolve our contribution to the problem of polarization in society by blaming it on big tech. Certainly, algorithms and technology, social media algorithms and search algorithms have played an incredibly important role in this polarization of society, in any society, anywhere in the world if you go and look at. But I don't think media has done enough to stand up to that trend and to fight it. I think the way that we can fight polarization, and if we agree, and if we all agree that polarization is the biggest challenge of our times today, much more than authoritarianism. I think authoritarianism, we sometimes confuse ourselves for being the biggest challenge of our times. I think authoritarianism is a symptom, the root cause is polarization. If we think about polarization being the main problem of our times, the way we fight it and the way we fight back against that trend really is to go back to facts. And if we are honest and truthful to our profession, we have to put facts as sacred, and we have to focus on the facts. I think at the Express we have always endeavored and tried to do that. We have an incredible editorial team, we're blessed to have them, who have been very committed to the cause and the mission of journalism, the role journalism plays in society, the role of free press in strengthening democracy. These are the things that we are actually committed to, and journalism really has a long shelf life, has a very promising future as a sustainable business if we are committed, I think, to facts, and if we are committed to the larger role that we play. Post-COVID, a lot of post-COVID, more than COVID, I would say post the infodemic, rather than post-pandemic, let's call it post-infodemic. Through the infodemic, I think we've seen a lot of audiences and readers paying attention to the sources of news. They pay attention to where they're consuming their news from. No longer has it become, I saw it on TV, or I read it on a WhatsApp message, or I saw it in the paper. Now I see people paying attention to which paper, which channel, who sent it to me on WhatsApp. And I think that's an incredibly heartening trend. And I've got some data to back that trend and to tell you why it's heartening. Before COVID happened, before the infodemic happened, we were doing, at the Indian Express Group, we were doing 120 million users a month. At the peak of COVID, we touched 220 million users a month. That's in 6 languages across the world. This enormous growth that we witnessed in COVID, I think, goes to show the kind of conviction, the kind of importance that audiences are paying to the brands they consume news from, how discerning audiences are becoming to where they're getting the news and information from. I think we're one of the few newspapers today where in many cities we are selling more newspaper copies post-COVID than we did pre-COVID. For an English newspaper, that's not a very common trend to kind of see. So I think there is a certain understanding now from audiences about where they're consuming their content from, and so the importance to us, more so than ever now, is to again go back and reflect and think about what good journalism is, and indeed what a good journalist is. I've always been very, I followed the work of a professor at Columbia Journalism School named Sri Srinivasan when I was studying journalism in the United States, and he always said a good journalist is somebody who is specializing and digitizing. So the digitizing bit, I think, we all recognize, and I'll park that to one side. The other bit, the specializing bit, I think that's an important piece where we have traditionally been defining a good journalist as somebody who's invested in understanding a particular domain very well. Somebody who's got domain authority, in a space that they pick or choose. So it could be defense, it could be sports, cricket, it could be climate change, whatever a journalist decides and goes deep into a particular domain. That's generally what we consider as a good journalist. I'd like to add to that I think a good journalist is somebody who is extremely curious. That's one, just a character, a characteristic of a good journalist now, somebody who's always curious about everything and anything. And more importantly, I think a good journalist is someone who is extremely empathetic. And I think that the empathy angle in journalism, I think we might need a bit of a reminder for, because we have to be aware that, whose facts, whose truths are we going to be paying attention to. And it is only if you are curious and empathetic to the other side, the various truths to every story, I think that's really where fact-based journalism becomes, an incredibly powerful tool. And it's not easy. I want to be absolutely clear that being a good journalist who's looking at multiple angles, who's trying to invest time and effort in finding multiple truths, looking at all sides, it's not an easy thing to do. In fact, if you look at all the efforts that these incredibly innovative technology companies have made in the news space, for instance, Apple News, one company that I've always admired is Apple. In the world, I've always admired is one company that's maintained their innovativeness, has institutionalized creativity in a way that we all wondered whether they would be able to after Steve Jobs. They've done everything right, and there's one thing that Apple has struggled with is Apple News. And the fact that Apple couldn't get news right, I think it really goes to show that what we do is hard. It's very, very hard. And if we are not committed to doing that for the right reasons, that is, if we're not committed to doing that to fight for democracy, to fight for empowerment, to fight for creating a society which is intelligent, which is getting smarter, which is expanding worldviews, we're going to fall into the short product life cycle world of the digital age. So I think coming back to fact-based journalism, focusing on that, reminding ourselves of that, I think that's extremely crucial. And I think that there can never be enough reminders, there can never be enough days where we take the opportunity to remind ourselves and our readers and our audiences on the importance of doing what we do and just doing it with integrity. Many news organizations in India have been doing this for the right reasons now for almost 100 years, more than 100 years sometimes. I just wish that we are all we all have the same conviction in the role that we play and the job that we do that we've had for all these 100 years. And I think with that, I'd like to thank Mathrubhumi for taking out for inviting me here and for creating this opportunity to discuss this very important issue. And all the best and good luck. Thank you so much.